midway Unit 4 weekly update. We are officially in between the weeks within Unit 4. But I do want to start off by saying, for those of you that are in Units 2 or 3, or even in Unit 1, there's still lots of time to accomplish the tasks that we have set out for you. And there are a lot of other people who are in those units at this time, and you can use the group finder to find people who are working on the unit that you are, and you'll probably find people just in the forums to work with. So please feel free to sort of work at any stage within the course that you are, and don't feel like if you've fallen a unit or two behind that it's not worth completing. There's still a lot of time to be able to do that work. But I'll focus in terms of my weekly update on the activity that does come in this unit, but you can find out your own updates by looking through the forums for the other units. So I'll start off with the activity break, which was about the questions for playtesting, pointing out a few of those. So Mike Dell had a series of questions, and the interesting part of this was that he really sort of articulated why he chose each question in terms of the game design. And that really can help you think about your own questions by looking at not only just copying other questions, but thinking about the thought processes that other people go through as they think about their questions and how it might relate to their game, because you might need to use different questions for your game. Anu, or AB1102, also had a nice job on this activity break. She had a survey and specifically broke down different kinds of expectations and user engagement and user involvement in the game that she was using. Again, you don't necessarily want to copy those same exact questions, but think about what games she had, why she might have asked those questions, and how you might sort of be able to come up with parallel questions in your own game. John from Dublin continues to sort of make good contributions here. Important here was how he thinks about the relationship between observation and the instruments he's using to collect data. Because sometimes the data that you get back from those instruments may not reflect the player's actual experience. Players might have they might not want to disappoint you, as we've talked about in our course. Or they might not even realize necessarily consciously what they're thinking. So the observation allows you to be able to study their body language, the way that they actually talk, or the tone of their voice. It's a nice way to triangulate with interviews and with some of the survey data what they were actually thinking about your game. So that's a nice dissection of that. I'll use some comments on The Logical Woman to sort of bridge between her questions that she used in the activity break and the follow-up that she did to that within the assignment on playtesting and iteration. So she's designed a game about, it's ostensibly about marble madness, where you have different marbles that are being produced by a machine, and it's about thinking about Venn diagrams, so sorting those into different areas and thinking about how those different characteristics overlap or not. Nice game, nice mechanics, and nice questions that she had in the playtesting to think about how the game might meet her needs. In particular, how she's actually gone to think about who she can recruit to playtest this. So some of you may be in the same situation where you may not have people in your target audience with you who you can playtest your game. And so for many of you who have online games, it's a chance to go out to your online community. So maybe it's about using Facebook friends. Maybe it's about using other people in this course, as The Logical Woman did, and I think other people have done as well. So think about where you might get those playtesters from and how you might get data from them, whether it's about surveys that they have, or whether maybe it's about a webcam interview or a webcam even that can be running while they play the game. All different ways that you might be able to collect some of that data while you're having them test your game. Chris, aka Raya 2000, happened to reveal that he was local, part of the Boston Game Makers Guild, and really has a nice description of the many iterations that he went through with different audiences on his board game. And it's a nice story about how each iteration and each audience reveals something different about the game. So it's definitely worth reading and thinking about how you yourself, if you have different opportunities to work with different audiences, how you might engage them in testing your game. Mike Adell had also some good questions here that were about test questions. And how he thought about how those might help him on his game, which we also talked about earlier. But the important thing, I just want to make a comment here. If you want to check out this game, it's actually a really nicely executed game. It's a math game about order of operations. It has some elements that I think could be improved in terms of the way that the mathematics at the bottom of the screen connect to the operations at the top of the screen. Jason commented, it's really interesting to think about ways that you can connect those things, and they don't even have to be constrained by reality. It's not necessarily about the way that they're actually connected in the physical world between those mathematical operations in space, but maybe those sort of impact the spaceship. Maybe spaceships multiply or divide, or you add or subtract members of your crew based on the operations that you do. A nice way to think about how those things might interact. And finally, JLearner1433, who we've seen his driver game in previous weeks, talks about the iterations of his game and the playtesting on that. And I think also critically pointing out where things didn't work very well. And that's something that's really important to be honest with yourself about when you're doing playtesting and not to dismiss what someone thinks. There was a specific comment on icons that he thought were universal, that everybody should understand, that people didn't understand. And so it's a matter of redesigning those in ways that are useful, not berating your users to tell them that they should understand those things. So a really nice deep look at some of that design and how sometimes you're surprised by some of the things that you find in playtesting. And it's important to let yourself be surprised. So with that, I'll turn you over to some of these activities, and you should continue in Unit 4 and do some of these activities, or as I said previously, catch up in Units 2 or 3 so that you can cover some more of the activities and content that we've outlined for you. So we'll see you online.